All right. Well, I think we are just about ready to begin.
Hello?
And I am going to ask people
Hello?
to mute their microphones if you can, or maybe Samantha, you could mute all of us. Terrific, terrific. Well, I want to welcome everybody. We have a lot of exciting things planned this evening for our time together. Um, I want to acknowledge first, we're getting a little background noise. Great, great. Okay, welcome again, everybody. I am Rabbi Julie Schoenfeld. I am the former CEO of the Rabbinical Assembly, and I am a member of the steering committee of Jewish Women for Joe. And we are here tonight to celebrate the inauguration of our president, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. and Vice President Kamala Harris. And I just love to say that. I will hold back from saying it over and over again. First, I want to acknowledge, I put up as my background the memorial, the COVID memorial at the Reflecting Pool, because I also want to acknowledge that today was International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And Jewish Women for Joe thanks everybody who was
I've
with
never
us
seen those
for
instructions
our
before.
inaugural Day of Service project, which was to write letters to Holocaust survivors so that they know that they would not be forgotten. And we transition now really just at this twilight moment, just as you see twilight in my background from January 19th, we transition to the Jewish festival of Tu B'Shvat. And when I saw this memorial on January 19th, it reminded me very much of kindling yahrzeit lights before Jewish festivals, when before a Jewish occasion of celebration, we give honor and memory to the people whom we lost. And we go forward with our Jewish commemoration with a sense of purpose. And more than purpose, as we saw on January 20th, we go forward in our work together as we will tonight with joy. Tonight's festival of Tu B'Shvat is the Jewish celebration of what they call the birthday of trees. Trees are an incredibly important symbol in Judaism. In fact, that we say that our Torah is a tree of life for all who hold fast to it. And in contemporary times, botany, science, is teaching us things we never knew before about trees and about why they are so important in the world, because trees, like human beings, have an ecosystem. We've come to discover that the ecosystem deep within the roots of trees on our planet is the ability to share resources, to share nutrients and water and shade, and to work together collaboratively. And what we are celebrating here tonight is in that same spirit of Jewish Women for Joe, our ability, the gift that all of you gave us of sharing with us your resources and your time and your energy so that we could bring forth as Jewish women, be part of this incredibly important moment in American history, which is a moment of sharing and collaboration and cooperation. And we have, for a remarkable time in our lives, a president in President Joseph R. Biden Jr., who exemplifies those Jewish values of kindness and empathy and cooperation and sharing. And so I leave you with a Jewish midrash, a Jewish story about trees, and it goes like this. Once an older man was planting a tree, and people came by and said to him, "Why do you bother to plant that sapling? That sapling will not grow to fullness in your life." And just as we know here today that we move forward to work for things that we'll have to work for a long time, but that will yield incredibly important, beautiful fruit, that man said to the passersby, "I do not plant this tree today for myself. I plant this tree for my children and for my grandchildren." so that they may live in the world that gives forth beauty and fruit and shade. I turn this over now to our beloved, wonderful chairwoman of Jewish Women for Joe, Susie Stern.
Thank you, Julie, as always, for your beautiful words. This is a wonderful gathering, and it's a way of our thanking all of you for your untiring efforts on behalf of President Joseph R. Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's say that one more time. President Joseph Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. And then you never faltered until we worked to make sure that John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock would take their places in the United States Senate. So we now have Senator John Ossoff and Senator Raphael Warnock. Also sounds really good. And to add to that list is our very special guest today, Congresswoman Kathy Manning, who was sworn in January 3rd to the House of Representatives. As I introduce Kathy Manning to you, I must say, a bit verklempt, because Congresswoman Kathy Manning has been my friend for, I think, over 50 years since we were at summer camp in Northern Michigan. I am older, I will admit. I was the CIT, I believe. Today, Kathy Manning joins us as the newly elected representative from North Carolina District 6. Kathy graduated from Harvard and the University of Michigan Law School before moving to Greensboro, North Carolina, where she and her husband, Randall, raised their 3 fabulous children. After serving as a partner in a major law firm, she left to start her own immigration law firm. Kathy has worked to expand access to early childhood education, college scholarships, and workforce development through her participation in many nonprofit organizations. For the past several years, Kathy worked tirelessly on a major project to revitalize downtown Greensboro and spur economic growth. Many of you will know Kathy from her leadership in the Jewish community, serving as the very first woman to chair the Board of Trustees of Jewish Federations of North America. In Congress, Kathy's going to be a proud member of the Committee on Education and Labor and has been given one of the coveted spots on Foreign Affairs. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Kathy Manning.
Thank you so much, Susie. Let me start by just congratulating each and every one of you on the incredible work you did planning and running Jewish Women for Biden. You put on amazing substantive programs with remarkable speakers. I attended several of them because I learned so much when I was on your programs. You put such an enormous amount of work, and I am confident that you can share credit for President Biden and Vice President Harris's big win. And I have to tell you, just being here with all of you, I feel like this is almost the first time I can exhale and celebrate, because as I think we'll hear, my first 3 weeks in Congress have been a little unusual, but I'm going to just let Susie jump in. I know you've got a lot of questions you want to ask me, so rather than taking up time talking, I'm going to let you take over.
Wow. Okay, Kathy, since you were sworn in on January 3rd, there has been, the first Wednesday was an insurrection, the second Wednesday was an impeachment, the third Wednesday was an inauguration, the fourth Wednesday is the interview here with Jewish Women for Joe. A little less chaotic, I hope. I know everyone wants to hear your take on all of these events. Let's start with the swearing in. First of all, have you gotten used to being called Congresswoman?
I have to tell you, it still sounds very strange to me, and I'm not sure I'll ever get used to it. I recently, we were having an all-staff meeting, and some of my staff call me Kathy, but a lot of them call me Congress, because they were with me before I became a congressperson, but several of them call me Congresswoman. And I asked my district director, I said, you can call me Kathy. And she smiled at me and she said, I'm going to keep calling you Congresswoman Manning. I think you've earned that honor.
Sweet.
So I've stopped correcting people. I thought that was actually very lovely of her.
Okay, Congresswoman Manning.
But Susie, you can call me Kathy.
I like Congresswoman. I like the sound of it. I'm really proud of you, and you have earned that title for sure. So let's talk about what happened on the day of the swearing in, what you were feeling. We like the details and what it meant to you to take the oath of office. I listened to Chuck Rosenberg's podcast called The Oath when he talks to people about taking that oath of office. So give us the scene on the day of your swearing in.
So let me describe the scene a little bit, and you'll stop me. My father always says it takes me longer to describe an experience than it did for me to live through it. So I'll try to cut to the chase. We had been coming to the House floor. We were divided because of COVID. They had divided us into groups, and we were not supposed to all be in the House at the same time. We were supposed to go in groups as we were voting. First, we had to register so that they knew there was a quorum. Then we got to vote for speaker, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And we were there for our last vote before the swearing in. And unexpectedly, a Republican made a motion to say that all Republicans who were from states whose electoral college results were being disputed should not be sworn in, because if those people were maintaining that the presidential election in those states was fraudulent, then so were the congressional elections that were those people were claiming their right to be seated. So we were a little bit confused because it was a Republican who was making the motion. We didn't know what it was about, and Steny Hoyer immediately jumped into a motion to seat all Congress people and called for a vote. So everybody had to vote about whether all the Congress people should be seated, and everybody came running back in despite the fact we were supposed to be in groups. So all of a sudden there was this big hubbub. There were far more people on the floor than were supposed to be there. The vote to seat everybody passed. And I think the speaker, just not expecting all of this, just decided, all right, I'm just gonna swear everybody in who's here. Forget coming in groups, just everybody raise your right hand. And so there was this enormous feeling of excitement. By then, I had been in and out of the House enough times to figure out where I needed to stand so that my family could see me on C-SPAN. So for anybody who was watching, I was standing right in the front row, and I had learned from my wonderful friend, the late Kay Hagan, to wear a bright color so that I could also be seen by people who were looking for me. So I was standing right in the front row in my red jacket, and we raised our right hands, and then Nancy Pelosi read the oath of office. And I have to tell you, I don't know that I'd ever listened to it quite so carefully, but I was listening to it at that moment in time. And I actually got, to other people, I say I got a little more emotional than I would have expected. To this group, I'll say I got verklempt. And it was quite a moving experience to take that oath, and more memorable than I would have expected.
Great. So I have another question. I'm told that Kevin McCarthy and Nancy Pelosi both made speeches before you were given the oath. Can you share that little bit of information?
You just have to picture, this is the first time I'd been on the House floor as a member. I was just, somebody showed me how to put my card in to vote, where to look on the wall to make sure my vote was registered. And I guess I didn't remember that the minority leader gets to stand up and make a speech before the speaker. And he got up there, and I guess I was expecting, this is the beginning of a new Congress, a new administration, that he would make a speech that was gracious and sort of setting the tone for the unity we were all hoping for. And yet he made the most bitter, appallingly partisan speech that you could have imagined. Somebody said, instead of greeting us with an outstretched hand, he greeted us with a closed fist. And he blamed the Democrats for dividing the country. His language was sort of the modern day equivalent of challenging us to a duel. It was appallingly bad behavior.
This is happening for the last 2 to 3 days, right?
See, this is what happens in Congress. At all of our Zoom meetings, somebody always forgets to mute. So this is not unexpected.
Okay, and then Nancy Pelosi took over?
After McCarthy was done with his really despicable speech, it was Nancy's turn. and Nancy Pelosi strode up to the podium. She lifted the gavel and held it high up in the air as if she were saying, you can whine all you want, but I am the Speaker of the House and this gavel is mine. And so there was thunderous applause. It was actually great. She is remarkable in her strength and her ability to get her point across without saying anything nasty.
Great. These are great stories. Okay, so that was January 3rd, getting your feet wet, and then comes January 6th. And I listened to a podcast you did, Women Belong in the White House by Jenny Kaplan, your daughter, which I recommend all of you listen to. It's quite just wonderful. So why don't you tell us what happened, the events of January 6th?
So we had been told ahead of time to expect a long day. And for anybody who doesn't know what actually led up to what we know about January 6th, that was the day that we were going to certify the votes of the Electoral College. And we knew that the Republicans were going to object because they still had not given up on this ridiculous notion that there was widespread election fraud. So we were told, wear comfortable shoes and pack a lunch, pack a dinner, bring a pillow and blanket because it was going to be a very long day. So early on, we had a couple of different votes that we had to make. And then they wanted the only people that they wanted on the House floor, because we were back to this, let's respect the COVID regulations. The only people they wanted on the House floor were the Democrats who were speaking, but they were offering time slots for those of us who really, really wanted to watch. We could get a time slot to sit in the gallery, which is the balcony surrounding the House chamber. And as I say, I wanted to be in the room where it happened. So I got a time slot at 1:15 to go sit in the gallery and watch. And at 1 o'clock, I left my office to walk over to the House chamber. And these two police officers came running toward me and were yelling, evacuate the building, evacuate the building. So I ran back to my office and got my chief of staff, because she was in there by herself. And she said, take your coat, take your purse. And we ran down the 4 flights of stairs and then walked through the tunnels to the building that they wanted us to evacuate to. And when we got to the other building, everything was perfectly normal and nobody was stopped or panicked. And so she said, well, I guess you can walk over to the Capitol and claim your spot in the gallery. So that's exactly what I did. I walked over to the Capitol, took my seat in the gallery, and was watching. I watched Jamie Raskin give just the most remarkable speech, and I'll fast forward through that. But he is an extraordinary man who came to participate even though he had just lost his 25-year-old son. And he came because he thought that this was so important. And he'd given this remarkable speech, and I was sort of making notes on my phone while there were some other speeches going on. And all of a sudden there was this commotion, and I looked and saw they were pulling Steny Hoyer out and Jim Clyburn, who's the majority whip. And police were shouting from all around the floor and up to the police at the gallery saying, lock the doors, the Capitol has been breached. So the police were running around. There were quite a few doors in the gallery that they were locking all the doors. And then they were from downstairs, they were shouting at us to take out our gas masks. And we didn't even know there were gas masks, but they told us underneath each seat was a gas mask. We pulled them out. Some people put them on. Some people just were holding them, opening the packages. And the next thing we knew, downstairs, they said, we're going to get all of you out downstairs through this one door, move quickly. So we saw them evacuate everybody from downstairs. But up in the gallery, we were just sitting there. And I think there were 2 or 3 police officers, and we could hear people pounding on the doors behind us to get in. And there were 3 members who I knew who were sitting in the gallery with us who had all been in the military. And I decided I was watching them and following their lead. And everybody was just sitting very quietly. We of course couldn't see what was going on outside. And after more pounding and more commotion, one of the officers said, we need each of you to run around to the other side of the gallery, and we may have to take cover when we're over on the other side. So we were stepping over the refuse from all of the gas masks that have been open, and we were ducking under these hand railings that separate the seating areas up there. We got to the other side, and then one of the police officers said, everybody get down on the floor and take cover. And I had already scoped it out and figured that the only place to take cover was if you could get in front of the very front row of chairs, because it's sort of stadium seating up there. So I got down right in the front row, and I saw a photographer next to me, and I did not want to be in whatever pictures he was taking. So I got down where he couldn't really take my photograph. And then they said to us, take off your member pins, because we don't want them to be able to identify which ones of you are members of Congress. That was the moment when my heart started racing, because that's when I really realized that they were after us, that we were the targets. And then everybody just stayed quiet. And we were there down on the floor for what seemed like forever. It was probably 15 or 20 minutes. And when I looked up, I could see that the police officers had their guns drawn. They were watching the floor, the doors down below. We heard a shot, but we didn't know it was a shot. Now, having seen what was going on downstairs, that was the shot where that woman was killed who was trying to break through the doors, because those were the doors that were right outside of the House floor. And then one of the police officers said, we're going to get you out of here. We're going to open this door, and we need you to run down those 4 flights of stairs as quickly as possible. So they opened the doors. We all ran out. I saw to my right a bunch of people lying flat on the floor, but I didn't stop to see who they were. We all got down those 4 flights of stairs. They took us through the basement areas, and they had us all in a secure room where we joined everybody else who had been evacuated from the House floor. They had us there for about 4 hours. And after 4 hours, I had very little power on my phone left. So every hour I just texted my husband and said, I'm fine. Tell everybody I'm fine. And the rest of the power I used, I actually decided I was going to write down exactly what had happened before I forgot or the memories got mixed up. So I spent my time in that room writing down what had happened. I'll tell you 2 things more about that, and then we can move on. After about 4 hours, Steny Hoyer and Nancy Pelosi came back into the room, and they gave these extraordinary speeches about how important, how significant what happened was, that these people had tried to destroy the center of our democracy, that they had tried to disrupt us from doing our constitutional duty to secure the peaceful transfer of power. And that as soon as they secured the Capitol, we were all going right back into that House chamber and taking the vote so that we could certify the Electoral College. And my thought at that moment was, it's been 4 hours. They still have not secured the Capitol. What is going on out there? I just couldn't believe they still hadn't secured the Capitol. And then people were milling around, and I will tell you this that I don't share with everybody. I walked up to Nancy Pelosi, who had been so kind to me, and she looked a little shaken up, and I said, are you okay? And she said, well, no, I'm not okay. They tried to, this was an insurrection. They tried to destroy our democracy. And then she looked at me and she said, I have that same jacket. And I said, oh, well, I wouldn't have worn it if I'd known you had it. She said, oh no, I love it. It looks great on you. And I thought, in the midst of all of this, we're still women, observing each other. It was actually pretty comical. Then she left, and they took the leadership out. We were there for a little while longer, and then they told us that we could go back to our offices and wait until we were called to take our last vote. And so we took the last vote. Well, actually, there were more speeches. People went back to the House floor, and the Republicans continued to stand up one after the next and make speeches that the Electoral College should not be certified, that there was still widespread fraud. And that was after everything we had just been through. And so that was the moment at which I told my communications director that we should release a statement that this president needed to be removed by whatever means possible, whether it was 25th Amendment or impeachment, because he had clearly created such a destructive mob. It was beyond the pale. I think we made our last vote that night at about 3:30 in the morning, and then I went home.
This is a remarkable story. I'm waiting for the made-for-TV movie of the first week that you were in Congress. An incredible story. We are short on time, but I do want to ask you something. There was a report today that the Department of Homeland Security issued a terrorism advisory from threats from ideological motivated violent domestic extremists. I think there is no law currently against domestic terrorism, and all of us are suffering as we saw the people in the insurrection wearing their Camp Auschwitz t-shirts, the rise of anti-Semitism, the rise of white nationalists. Tell us your thinking as you begin your term on how we can deal with this.
So when all of this happened, or right after all this happened, I was talking with my legislative counsel about what should we be doing about this. I mean, this, unfortunately, getting rid of President Trump was just getting rid of the tip of the iceberg. What he has unleashed is very frightening, and it's not just the white nationalism that's erupted in this country. It's really a global movement. And what we decided was that we are drafting a bill to declare domestic terrorism should be treated the same way that foreign terrorism is, because there is not a law that treats domestic terrorism the same way foreign terrorism is treated. So we are currently in the process of drafting that bill. That will probably be the first bill that I introduce and that I ask others to sign on to. I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee, as you mentioned, and just today we got to select our subcommittees, and I am on the Middle East subcommittee, and Ted Deutsch is the chair of that subcommittee, and he and I have already had conversations about different things that we can be doing to go after anti-Semitism, because it's part of this whole frightening movement. And I don't think we shouldn't be putting our heads in the sand. This is a huge problem that we are going to have to confront head on. And I'm also, so we discussed it in the Foreign Affairs Committee, but I'm also on the Education and Labor Committee. And we talked about the fact that one of the things we need to be doing is educating our kids and making sure that they have the critical thinking skills, so that when they see stuff on TV and on the internet, they have the skills to discern what's true and what's false. And apparently a huge segment of our population lacks that ability.
Kathy, I could go on, and I know we could do like 2 hours with you, and what we'll have to do is invite you back because your first week was so filled with things and we didn't get to all the other things. I can say I know on behalf of all of us that you do not only represent North Carolina's 6th District, you represent all of us. We are so proud, and we look forward to seeing you do great things. I know you will, because I know you such a long time, and I know that we are just blessed to have you representing all of us in the halls of Congress, and I just wish you only the best things as you go forward.
And let me just say 2 things as you shoo me away. Number one, when I had my first all-staff meeting, I said to my new staff members, you have to understand, I have 2 constituencies. I have the people of the 6th District of North Carolina. That's my first constituency. My second constituency is the Jewish people. So when Jewish people call and ask me to attend their meetings, generally the answer is yes, we'll get that on our calendar. And I just want to say again, thank you for what each and every one of you have done. You make a huge difference. Keep doing it. And I invite you all to come see me in my office, 415 Cannon.
Thank you, Kathy, so much. Thank you. So I just told you how verklempt I was to introduce Kathy, since I knew her since she was a kid at summer camp, and somebody asked what camp it was, National Music Camp, Interlochen, for those of you in Northern Michigan. But I have another moment of verklemptedness, or whatever it might be, because I'm going to introduce you to the Schul sisters, who came together because they had a shared desire to use music to lift women's voices. And acclaimed cantors Rachel Brook from Park Avenue Synagogue, Rachel Goldman from Congregation Nerta Mead in Los Angeles, and Lori Akers Congregation Or Shalom in suburban Chicago came together as the Schul Sisters, a cross-country collaborative vocal trio with the fundamental belief that joining together in song reminds us all of our inherent worth and beauty, and wait till you hear them. This new trio has been collaborating virtually since March 2020, when the world changed, obviously for all of us. Releasing the viral video, I'm gonna walk it with you, with Christian faith leaders inspired the Schul Sisters to continue the work of connecting communities across the world through harmony and inspiring songs. The Schul Sisters recently performed, and many of you saw them at the 2021 International Line of Judah Conference, and last year at the 2020 Imagine More JDC Global Women's Summit. They're preparing for their first feature-length concert at Park Avenue Synagogue in 2021, and I can tell you all of us will want to be in the audience. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rachel and Lori, but I'm going to turn it over to Lori Akers, who is going to speak, but I will also tell you that her mother and my husband are first cousins, and we've been listening to Lori sing since she was a little baby, and it's given us nothing but great joy.
Thank you so much, Susie. It is an honor to call you family, and you have been inspiring me since I was a little baby, so thank you for that. It is a true privilege for the Schul Sisters to be here among so many women who inspire and organize and mobilize and who create change. And we cannot imagine a better way for us to celebrate Tu B'Shvat, this holiday of renewal, than being here with all of you tonight. So at the center of the Schul Sisters is harmony. And harmony is created by both listening to the voices of others and also engaging your own voice. And it is not something that can be achieved alone. It's only achieved when all of our voices are represented equally. So tonight we are honored to share Alana Arian's powerful anthem, I Have a Voice. And in sharing this song, we want to express our gratitude to Jewish Women for Joe for ensuring that women's voices from around the country were heard, and that our collective voices will continue to be used to build a better world. This is I Have a Voice.
I have a voice, my voice is powerful, my voice can change the world. I have a voice, my voice is powerful, my voice can change the world. My change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Joseph. Thank you to the Schul Sisters for that lovely music, and we're going to get to hear more from them later. I had the privilege of working on the Biden campaign as a full-time staffer and also participating in the Jewish Women for Joe leadership team. Truly an incredible experience and an honor. Through that process, we all got to know another Jewish woman who you might recognize, Mayim Bialik. She was previously seen on Big Bang Theory and had her own show Blossom. Dr. Mayim Bialik is actually a PhD in neuroscience and truly an incredible person and leader, and really an example for all of us in the way she lives, very proud Jewish and progressive values. So she could not be here tonight because she is filming her new show, which she hopes you will all watch. But she wanted to share a very special message with us, so I'm going to share that now.
Hi, everybody. It's Mayim Bialik. Just saying hi. You all played such an important role in this historic election. I don't think that can be overstated. I don't even know where the camera is. Oh, there it is. Shows you how my morning's going, which is kind of what it feels like this year has been going like. We've come a very long way, especially thanks to women like you. And I know how many of you really set aside aspects of your life, your needs, to work for a greater good that many of us do see as an extension of our Jewish values and our purpose, really, here on this planet. And, I have so many hopes for this administration. I have tremendous respect for the way that President-elect and Vice President-elect have handled this exceptional transition period. And I hate to be like that person who's like, I knew this was going to happen, but I really did. I knew that this was not going to be a smooth transition. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But it's very, very scary. And in many ways, I feel like it's taken away from a lot of the joy and pleasure that so many of us were experiencing. And, I wept when Biden won, because we've been holding our breath for so long. And I especially want to talk about the complexity of being a Jewish person for Biden right now, because the rhetoric has been so incredibly strong and so aggressive in terms of how Jews should vote and what's the right way for Jews to participate in politics in America. So it's especially gratifying to have gotten to join forces with all of you and to continue to know that I'm not alone, that being a liberal Democrat does not equate to being anti-Zionist or a self-hating Jew or any of the other horrible things which completely misunderstand the nuance involved in really being alive today, in particular as a Jew, in particular as a Jewish woman. So, I feel grateful that I was asked to address you and say hello, but I also feel like I have so much to learn from all of you. I will follow your lead. There's more work to be done, and I look forward to doing that work together, because there's a lot more that people need to know about us, about Biden, about the amazing vice president that we now have representing the wives of Jewish men everywhere. In all seriousness, it is a tremendous, tremendous platform. And I thank you all for being part of it and for allowing me to be part of it with you. I look forward to what this year and the next several have in store for all of us. Take care.
Wow. I hope that you are all feeling rather empowered as the Schul sisters talked about in their spectacular song, and sang about so beautifully and so movingly, because we can change the world. And the next two people that I am so proud to introduce have already done that, and they're going to continue to do that. And hopefully they're going to help all of us learn even more about how to do that in the future. It is my distinct honor to introduce Valerie Habuff and Joni Shubin, who are the co-founders of Jewish Democratic Women's Salon of Atlanta. And I get the chance to ask the two of you a few questions about how you've changed the world and the kinds of work that you feel has been most impactful in the most amazing experience that you all have had in Georgia. And that as Joni and Valerie, as you both said, we are all Georgians now. So I am going to turn to you, Valerie, first. Can you please share why you created the Jewish Democratic Women's Salon and how you've actually achieved what you set out to accomplish?
So before I say anything, Jill, what I want to say is a huge, loud, I want to use my voice to say thank you to you and to Susie and to the steering committee for having the vision to start Jewish Women for Joe and for giving all of us a chance to use our voice to be difference makers. So I'm speaking actually on behalf of everyone on this call. But to answer the question, how did we start Jewish Democratic Women's Salon? There's a story. In 2012, Joni and I noticed that the conservative trends of our state were increasingly involving our own Jewish community. And you can imagine that was a bit shocking to us. We created Jewish Democratic Women's Salon because we wanted to create a safe space for Jewish women to gather, to educate ourselves on the issues, to empower ourselves to be difference makers, and to engage into action. And so from the very beginning, we have always been issue-centric. We identified 8 issues that were important to us, and we know that they're important to everyone on this call. I have to look at my cheat sheet to make sure that I don't forget any of the issues, because if I do, the women who are involved in those issues will get really, really mad at me, and I've done that before. But it's women's reproductive rights, expanding healthcare, gun violence protection, protecting our environment. I told you I would forget some. Education and child protection, refugee and immigration rights, and resisting religious infringement laws. And I still think, even looking at my cheat sheet, I forgot one of those things. Our 1,600 members are engaged in that 12 months out of the year. We are issue-centric 12 months out of the year. I'm so delighted to be here, but honestly, I wish you could meet our 1,600 members, because they are truly the strength of Jewish Democratic Women's Salon. Joni and I are constantly awed by the power of these women to be difference makers. We are election-centric during election years, because we know that it's up to us to elect people to office who will represent us on these issues. And we know that's how we can really achieve change.
Thank you so much. And I feel like we may have met most of your 1,600 members, and so many of the people on this call may have met so many of your 1,600 members, because so many people on this call worked so hard for the election of Senators Warnock and Ossoff. Joni, I'm going to turn to you. How did being involved in Jewish Women for Joe affect your local efforts?
Well, I'm going to start off with a big thank you also, because not only did you reach out to us before the Biden election, but when we made that urgent ask for y'all to please help us, we needed the help in Georgia. Your group responded, "We're there for you." And I can't tell you what that meant for us. I mean, we really truly know that when Jewish women need to get something done, we get it done. And we can't thank you enough for all your help, because this election was all about numbers. It was about getting out the vote. And your expertise and support just it allowed us to touch thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the state of Georgia. And we got out more votes than they did. We were successful, and that's what mattered. And we learned that when we stand together, we're stronger together. I can't tell you how awful the TV ads were in our state. They were nonstop about radical liberal socialism, but that's not what got people out. Stacey Abrams has told us for years that the numbers were there. But what we needed to do was we needed to meet people where they are. We needed to reach out and register them, and we needed to reach out to them and tell them why their vote was so important, because Georgia has had a horribly long and ugly history of voter disenfranchisement. I mean, voter suppression is terrible in our state, as we all know. It's coming back again. And but Stacey taught us that phone banking works, text banking works. So because of Jewish Women for Joe and the ability to reach out to so many thousands of people, we won. And so we can't thank you enough. And I have a story that I want to end on. The day of the election, of the runoff election, the local news was out asking people on TV why they came out to vote. And the one I saw was a young woman. She was in her 30s. She was a hairdresser. And he asked her, what made you come out to vote? And she said, you know, I don't always vote. She said, but I can't tell you how many phone calls I got, how many text messages and postcards, all urging me telling me that this was the most important election in my lifetime. And if I wanted to see change, it was up to me to make that vote, to go out and vote. So she did. And I think about that, like it could have been one of us who reached out and spoke to her and made her do the right thing. So thank you, Jewish Women for Joe. You really helped make such a difference in our state.
I'm so glad, because we are all so blessed with a Senate where we have Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. What a total joy. And that woman, you all, and with some help, we enabled that. We helped that happen. Okay, so you're done, right? You're resting on your laurels. You're all set. Relax. Yeah, Valerie, what do you think? You're done?
We would love to be done. As you can imagine, we are exhausted. Just exhausted. But before, almost at the moment that the last vote was counted, our legislators went back into session, and they didn't waste any time, and we don't have any time to waste as well. We're all so grateful that Secretary of State Raffensperger, as we saw from across the country, we know y'all are familiar with him, that he stood up to Donald Trump and that he testified to the safety and legitimacy of our election. But about the moment that that last vote was counted, he was already at it, trying to suppress the vote. Here's what he's proposed that will make your hair stand on end. He's proposed that we shorten early voting. He's proposed that we get rid of no excuse mail-in balloting in Georgia. He wants mail-in balloting to have a voter ID. He wants to get rid of drop boxes. So Joni and I like to say that we started JDWS in outrage 8 years ago, and we are still in outrage. So we are right back at work, fighting voter suppression. We also know, and this is true for everyone on this call, that as soon as the census gets counted, Republican legislators will be back at work gerrymandering. And we know that we have to stand up to resist that. Our budget, we've had significant cuts to education, and we need to work on restoring education and expanding education in our state. But as everyone on this call knows, Ahmaud Arbery, what we call a modern day lynching, happened right here in our state. And so it's incumbent upon us to respond to that in the best way we can. The murderers of Ahmaud Arbery walked away from the scene of the crime using the excuse of citizen's arrest. we at Jewish Democratic Women's Salon, we know we need to repeal that antiquated law of citizens arrest, to get rid of it. We also want to work on stand your ground. We want to restore lots of criminal justice issues. We want to restore the right to vote from people who have served in prison. And we, and it was in the national news just now, agree that there shouldn't be private prisons. So we have plenty of work to do, not just on the 8 issues I described, but on those issues as well.
No rest for the weary as we
absolutely no rest.
All right, so we're going to close very quickly. I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds to summarize. Joni, I know that we were talking a little bit about enabling other people to do what you all have done. So I'm going to ask you to close with that. And Valerie, last words for you as well. Joni, go ahead. What can other people do to help in their own states that you all have done?
Well, I think we all have to continue to work locally, because we've seen how local success translates to national success. So I would just really encourage all the women on this call, if you're not part of a grassroots group, call Valerie and me. We're happy to help you start one. I would say that we feel, Jewish Democratic Women's Salon feels so connected to our community because we know our legislators. We work with them on legislation. We help them on their campaigns. We really feel like we're making a difference. And I would just encourage everyone to do the same.
Thank you, Joni.
So, yeah, I would just
welcome offer. So thank you.
I would say if Georgia can flip, your state can flip too. If we can do it in Georgia, you can definitely do it. You know, Ann Lewis says, and you know, she has a great quote, our own Ann Lewis, she says, when we stand together, we win. And that's the message to the women on this call. Join together because you're stronger together. That we were stronger together in this election as Jewish Women for Joe. And real change, you know, all politics is local, real change happens at the local level. I would finish with something that Reverend Warnock said when he came to speak to us in 2020. He said, leaders who lack vision focus on division. And so we have had 5 years of Donald Trump's divisiveness. He came into office on the lie of birtherism, and he left on the lie of election fraud. And in between was all that racism and anti-Semitism and hate. And how fitting that Georgia would send the first Black senator and the first Jewish senator to strongly affirm multiracialism as an antidote to everything that was Donald J. Trump. So my message is go home and do it in your own states.
The two of you are such inspirations to all of us on the National Steering Committee of Jewish Women for Joe, where I've been privileged to serve. The two of you just make my heart sing whenever I get to talk to you. You make me want to do more. And I think that is the message that all of us have, to want to do more. And to tell us exactly how to do that, I'm going to turn it to our own Ann Lewis.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Valerie, for that lovely mini introduction. As you heard, I'm Ann Lewis. I'm so proud to be part of Jewish Women for Joe. You know, from the beginning of the Biden campaign, we knew this election was critical for us, for our families, for our country. So we went to work. We pulled out old lists. We made new connections. When the pandemic came, we adapted. We phoned, texted, group emailed, and Zoomed. Oh, did we Zoom? The technology in this campaign was different, but the bottom line was the same, as you've heard. It is to reach as many people as possible, to talk about what's at stake for them and why voting, their vote, is so important. Well, our results were powerful. Thanks to all of you on this call, Jewish Women for Joe reached hundreds of thousands of voters. We were part of a campaign that won the highest ever voter turnout in a presidential election. And last week, we all got to cheer as we watched Joe Biden and Kamala Harris sworn in, because we knew our country was once again going in the right direction. We could cheer historic new appointments: the first woman vice president, the first woman secretary of treasury, the first Jewish secretary of Homeland Security, the first president to stop for bagels on his way home from Mass. You know, diversity is not just a slogan, It's our reality. It means a United States that welcomes the talent, the experience, the values of all of us, that opens a vista of new opportunities for us and our children and their children. These days, we don't cringe when we hear the news. We listen because we hear about policies that will make us stronger, smarter, safer. None of it can be done overnight, but we are on the way. Now, how far will we go? Well, let's get real. This brand new administration won't be able to govern effectively. Those appointments we cheered won't be able to do the jobs they were chosen to do without public support. Our new leaders are already under attack from political opponents, as you've just heard, who are using the same old techniques, divisive rhetoric, voter suppression. They're already working to obstruct votes in Congress, make voting harder in the states, reverse November's wins with next year's midterm elections. Everything we worked for in this campaign and won is now still on the line. So we can't stop now. When this program may be our last meeting, well, actually this program is our last meeting as Jewish Women for Joe, but we're thinking about our next chapter. What's next for us? What's next for President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? How do we stay connected and effective on behalf of President Biden and his policies? How do we build on what we've learned? Well, we want to hear from you. Your efforts, your talents and energy made a huge difference in this campaign. Now we need your ideas. So we're asking you, what do you think our next chapter should be? How should it read? Send your suggestions to jewishwomenforjoe at gmail.com. That's jewishwomenforjoe@gmail.com. Now, many of you have heard me this year talk about the fight for women's suffrage, because 2020 wasn't just an election year. It was the 100th anniversary of the year that women's right to vote was included in the Constitution. And that was a fight in which American Jews played a significant role. Well, think about it. This year, on the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote, the votes and voices of American women were essential in saving our democracy. And Jewish women were an even more important part of this year's campaign. So we have a lot to be proud of. And now, because we've saved the best for last, let's welcome back the Shul sisters and cantor Rachel Brooke.
Thank you so much, Anne. We are so in awe of the incredible work that you all do. We are so grateful to you for bringing us here, for allowing us to share our gift as we get to admire your gifts. And this song that we want to end and leave you with is I'm Gonna Walk It With You, which we think between these two songs, we've somehow managed to distill your messages, that we all have a voice and our voice is powerful, and that no matter how hard the road is ahead of us, we're gonna walk it together. So thank you so much to the Jewish Women for Joe. We are so, so grateful and honored to be here with you. This was a collaboration that we made with our friends, fellow leaders from the Christian faith, and we hope you enjoy, and we hope you take this message into the future. And thank you again for all you do on behalf of myself, Cantor Lori Akers, and Cantor Rachel Goldman.
It looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. I know you might have a heavy load, but I can carry some too. I will lift you up when they push you down. I will raise my voice, stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you.
Well, it looks like it might be a long night,
but I ain't going nowhere. And I know it's gonna be a hard fight, but I will stay right here. I will shine a light in the darkest hour. I will face the man in the tall of love. I will speak.
I will speak.
I will shout.
I will shout.
I will sing into the skies above, where it looks like it might be a perilous time, but I will follow your lead. And I know it might be a long time before the last one of us is freed, but I will hold on tight, stay by your side. I will be with you for this whole damn ride. Well, it looks like it might be a perilous climb, but I will follow your lead. I will lift you up when they push you down. I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. I'm gonna walk it with you. I'm gonna walk it with you.
I'm gonna walk it with you.
I'm gonna walk it with you.
I'm gonna walk.
Because it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you.
Jewish Women for Joe thanks all of you, the Schul sisters, Valerie and Joni, Kathy Manning, Maya Bialik, and to our incredible team. I think your last song said it. We are going to walk it together. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. Send us your ideas, and thank you. And we are stronger together, and this has been an extraordinary experience with all of you. We ain't done yet, but we'll tell you what the next chapter will be. Thank you. Have a great night.